Cheers. So let's talk about the All Blacks versus Ireland and the Springboks versus France. These are the two games. I mean, I've discussed the other games with you, but these are the two games we really want to talk about. So in both games, I've got to say, selection, decisions, man, these guys, both coaches going for some interesting decisions. I agree with some of it. I can see some of it. And others just don't make sense. But let's get into it. Let's have a discussion about the games coming up this weekend. Guys, we are super excited. I think it gets serious to say, that's it. We're all so excited about a World Cup. Yet your team, after tomorrow, the day after that, your team's out and it's over for you when it comes to World Cups. And that's the reality of World Cups, guys. But anyway, it is weekend, and cheers to all of you. I'm having a drink. So let's get into the teams. So I want to just discuss firstly the All Blacks playing Ireland. Now, there's a lot happening in the press. The selection of the All Blacks, there's been some controversy. We know the Irish played their cards early. They showed their hand. They said we're playing exactly the same team as against Scotland. You can't fault that team. All the players are outstanding. But from an All Black perspective, there's a lot that's gone down. But before we get into that, let's just have a look at the game. So we can see it's a quarterfinal, and we can see Wayne Barnes will be your referee. Matt Carley and Christoph Ridley will be your assistant referees, and Tom Foley, your match referee. I think I might have said this to you before. What I would say with that is it's going to be interesting for me to see. I always say it's going to be interesting for me to see, but that's the way I think in my head. So that's what I communicate. It would be to see how Wayne Barnes interprets the game and how much he'll be fair in his calls. I mean, usually he's very opinionated in what he thinks of the game, but he comes with very much of a Northern Hemisphere way of looking at games and the way he interprets the game. So that might be something for the All Blacks still that might be a factor in this game. I hope it's not too much of a factor. And you know it's going to be full of Irish supporters. The question is, how much All Blacks will there be to support? Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, there's a rugby match that will be played. So if we look at this lineup and we look at the Irish first, we got to say Andrew Porter, Dan Sheehan and Furlong. I mean, that's a really solid front back. And then obviously in there, Ian Anderson coming in. Tad Byrne there, that's been outstanding in this World Cup. And then looking at those loosies, you got to say, Josh van der Fleer has been there. He does his work. He's almost to me like a Peter Steph toy from the Springboks. You know, always grinding away and working very hard. But he's not been the standout player. I got to feel Peter O'Mahony has been just outstanding. Like, he's just been very vocal. He's kind of given that like Sia Kolisi kind of energy vibes. And he's really been good at this World Cup. And then obviously Doris at 8's also been very good. Then looking at that 9 and 10, I mean, Gibson Park and Johnny Sexton, both very, very talented players. Then going down to a Boone Aki and a Gary Ringrose. When you really look at this team, guys, it is a really good team. Aki is in probably the best form. Gary Ringrose is no slouch. And then looking at that back three, we thought that James Lowe might be out. There's questions at one point around Mac Hansen. Both of them in. And then Hugo Kenyon at the back, that's just been going from strength to strength on that fullback position. It's a really, really good stacked team. Then looking at the substitutes, you can see there Kelleher, Kilcoyne and Beelum coming off the bench. Joe McCarthy coming back into the team. And then there's a Connor Murray, we know so good at 9. He's a good replacement there for Gibson Park to come off the bench. Crowley's there. He's been really good. Everyone just looks at Johnny Sexton, but I've got to tell you, Crowley is not such a bad replacement. And then we've got Jimmy O'Brien. So a really good team on the team and some good replacements coming on. Let's go have a look then at the All Blacks. So Ethan de Groot coming in as the starting one for the All Blacks. It's interesting though, after his card and everything, I don't know. It's a difficult decision between, you know, all these props that the All Blacks have got. But they go with Ethan de Groot. I don't have much of an issue there. Cody Taylor and Tyrell Lomax has been instrumental for this team in many ways. He's just a really, really good tight head scrummager. and he's had that injury that he's battled with. It kind of opened up a little bit in the last game, but he's back there. Then looking at 4 and 5, interesting for me to see them going with a Retallick and not a Whitelock, but rather Scott Barrett. But we know Scott Barrett and Whitelock, just that, especially a Barrett being a bit younger, just bringing that energy onto the field. And we know how good this front pack's going to have to be from the All Blacks. Then looking, Shannon Fazell, Ardie Savia, Sam Cane. You're going to hate me for this, but I know there's a lot of loyalty to Sam Cane, but Fazell and Ardie Savia, especially Ardie Savia, such an influential player. And you got to feel if Ardie Savia is going to come out there with the heart that we've seen with him before and just the total ferociousness, the All Blacks will have a shot because they got to win up front. But a Shannon Fazell, you can never say has not had a good game. He's also good up there. Sam Cane, I don't know, playing captain in this game to me again. I don't know, it should have been Ardie Savia a long time ago in my opinion. And a Sam Cane, yes, he's good, loose type player, but having to be ferocious over the ball, that kind of stuff, I don't really like the guy that much for a number one option in the All Black team. Then going Aaron Smith and Richie Mo'unga, again, that's a very good combination. Richie Mo'unga, well deserved being in there. Jordie Barrett and Rieko Ioane, again, a very good combination. Jordie Barrett really good at his defense as well. Rieko Ioane is just going to have to watch these guys. Abundi Aki is very dangerous. Ringrose as well. So the defense is going to be very important for the All Blacks to really, really mark the likes of Aki and Ringrose. Then going to the fullback position, Beauden Barrett. He's one of those guys at the moment. At one point he was in great form. At the moment he's kind of on and off sometimes. He's going to be very important in this game. And the reason why I say he's going to be so important is if he's on, he gets those kicks right, and he runs his lines and he creates some opportunity, this boy can be really dangerous. And I think a lot of All Blacks kind of feel, is he really deserving above D-Mac? But I've got to say, for me still, don't underestimate him. It's these big games that he might just come through and shine. He is a good player. Then Will Jordan there, say no more, he's a class player. But then on the other side, Lester Fangianuku. Now, Mark Talia, usually the first option, has been the first option in this World Cup. Now, we know the All Blacks have experimented with wings, but Fangianuku, no slouch. I've got no issues with Lester Fangianuku starting in this game for me personally. He's a straight runner, he breaks the tackle, and he gets those offloads away. So it's a blessing in many ways. But we have to allude to this whole thing with Mark Talia. And for me, Mark Talia not on the bench at least, and not being part of this 23. This is where I start asking questions, guys, around the selection options with the coaches. I know he probably said something he shouldn't have said. But making an example out of players and wanting to do this in a quarters at a World Cup, sometimes I wonder if Foster really realizes the magnitude of this game. This is not one of those games that the All Blacks will just win. This is probably going to be the biggest challenge for the All Blacks in all of the history of World Cups to win this game. And to be able, and then to say stuff like, oh, Talia won't get 23 just because he said something. He should have said something really serious, because they say they still love him. And there's no animosity. So I know it's for press, but Talia should have at least been on the bench. Okay, the punishment could have been you don't start the game. But I know many people will disagree with me here. But guys, this is a World Cup. You've got to put your best out. You can't be playing games now with disciplinaries and all kinds of other stuff. And then the last thing I will say before we get into the substitutes, how is Cam Roigard not in this team? I mean, it blows my mind. And this is the thing that Foster does, He's already, you can say what you want. The All Blacks are going a bit into this game as the underdogs. You can't look at a team like Ireland that's won like, 13 on the trot now. They in form. You got to give them, the head position and say, you are the underdog. You don't go in and the underdogs and go say, oh, I'm going to make some decisions just because I feel like it. What's this thing with Christie? That he feels that Christie's better than a Roigard just because of experience and stuff. Come on, man. It's not just about your experience, but it's also about your ability and your play and what you can do. Roygaard has totally shown the All Blacks what he can do when he's on the field. And the fact that he's not in this game shocks me, honestly. That he's not going to play this quarterfinal for the All Blacks is a slap in the face, guys. Christie has not been in this whole World Cup. He's not proven himself at all in the opportunities that he's had. Roygaard's done it over and over again. And you don't put this guy in the 23 in one of the biggest games the All Blacks are going to play. This could really hurt them. And you know what? The problem here is you've already got Robinson waiting. Razor's ready to start, take this team over. So you almost have this kind of freedom for Foster at the moment where he's just, I'll do whatever I want to do. And it's just frustrating to me looking from the outside at this, because you don't keep a guy with the quality of Roygaard out of this team and the ability on his counter-attack, his sniping, his overall play, his distributing. He's just a talented All Black, and he's going to be one of the best in the future. I have no doubts. Keeping this guy out just because he's young or something and keep going back to Christie is just ludicrous. And I don't know how these coaches think when they make these decisions, because surely Foster's not the only guy making the decisions. But anyway, let me move on. Dane Cole's on the bench. Nothing wrong with that for me. That's where I feel these kind of older players should be. Come off the bench. Dane Cole's lots of experience. A very elusive runner. And he does some amazing things around the line out. So I'm quite happy with him being there. Tamati Williams, why not, man? This guy's is a young guy, but he's really been coming up. Fletcher Newell, he does his job. Nothing outstanding to me, but he does his job. Sam Whitelock, big impact from the bench. Dalton Papali, again, he's got to make an impact. I don't know how much it's going to be, but he's going to have to be really, really good in this game. I don't feel he'll make the same impact as the likes of a Samuel Whitelock or even a Damian McKenzie, which we'll talk about now. But he's got to make some kind of impact in this game. It's going to be important for him to come and bring some more fire. Finley Christie, I mean, like really, really, guys, like nothing wrong with the guy. I don't want to break him down or anything, but he is not Roygaard. So I'm battling to see that decision there, you know. Damian McKenzie, man, what a player. That's the kind of impact you want. So why would you not bring a Roygaard and McKenzie on? To me is mind-blowing. Like, why not? But anyway, Damian McKenzie is at least there. And then Anton Leonard-Brown, such a good utility player in general. You can use him anywhere around there on the field, I think. Mainly specialized in center, but you know you can move him around a bit. And every time he's come up, he's done some good stuff. So again, I like him. Overall, looking at these two teams, guys, I gotta say, man, it's like almost Foster just weakened this team a little bit, just a little bit, by not putting these two players in the team. You know, Talia, okay, I get it, disciplinary, all this stuff. We stand by our code and our principles as All Blacks. But come on, man, this is a quarter and you want to win. And then the same, like, I do not for 1 second think Christie's better than Roygaard. There's no ways. How do you keep Roygaard out of this team in a World Cup quarterfinals? I'll say no more, guys. I felt that, you know, I've been watching some other podcasts and a lot of people say 55% to 60% Ireland, 55% at least, 45% All Blacks. But I have to lean to 40% when I'm looking at them. Foster being their coach, but their worst enemy, making silly decisions when it comes to quarters. Let all your pride go, mate. Oh, I'm going to discipline this guy and I'm going to keep picking Christie because that's just what I do. There's some arrogance there, and I think it's really silly going into a quarters, making decisions like this. And I really, really hope it's not going to backfire on the All Blacks. I really want to see them beat this Irish team, but you're going up against a top-class team, has won so many games on a trot, goes with all the confidence. They've beat the All Blacks in their own, you know, backyard. You've got to bring the best you've got, man. Anyway, let's move on. Springboks versus France. Oh boy, me as a Springbok supporter always gets nervous. I'm already nervous. I don't know what to say. But Ben O'Keefe been picked to referee this game. How do I feel about it? I still have a little bit of pain against the Irish in that last ball he didn't allow that was out of the ruck. But we got to move on from that. I've got to say, when we stand back and we look at a guy like Ben O'Keefe and the way he's reffed, I like him because he's very much a Southern Hemisphere type ref. He lets the game flow. I think he'll be good. He'll be good for this game. And he'll create a spectacle. And out of all the refs, are probably the two that I like the most. And many might say, oh, just not that guy, the French guy. But I like Renel because I think he's very assertive in his decisions. He does slow the game down a little bit more. But his decisions are always, for me, quite fair. And he reviews a lot of stuff. And then I like Renel, by the way, is a French coach. And then I like Ben O'Keefe because he makes the game flow. But Ben O'Keefe, man, how did he just look past that last game with the Springboks? I can't get over that last ball being out. There was opportunity and he just didn't look at it. But anyway, Ben O'Keefe back in the mix for the Springboks versus France. We've got Paul Williams and we've got James Dolman as the assistant referees. And then we've got Brendan Pickerel as the TMO. So we'll see how this goes down, guys. It's going to be interesting. I think the refs are going to play such a big role in this game. How much they'll be influenced by that crowd. I think it's going to be a stacked French crowd. And it's going to be tough for the Springboks because they'll play against all the odds. So let's have a look first at the French. Now, I mean, Cyril Bay, right in there, like really, really good. He's back in the mix. He's so good. Movaka has been outstanding. Antonio has done nothing wrong. It's a really, really strong front back. Waki and Flament. Waki, I mean, that guy is a really, really good lock as well. That's a good team. Jelonch, Olivon and Aldred. Jelonch and Aldred, especially. Aldred in that first game against the All Blacks. Jelonch is always there. He's ferocious. He gets over the breakdowns. He's a good player. So a really good front pack. And I've got to say, from a French perspective, their starting team is really, really good, guys. It's not no team that you can underestimate. Going into the back line, captain Antoine Dupont will go out there with a healing fractured bone in the face. It looks like he might only play with a scrum cap and not a mask like we thought. Everyone says if you touch this guy in the face, if there's going to be any kind of tackles, any arm in the face, you know it's going to be red. So there is some pressure from the opposition team. But at the same time, you know this guy is going to go in there. Guys can do normal tackles and can really hurt this guy because he is going to be a little bit... I don't think he'll have the same confidence as he usually has. But he will step up in this game. I think he'll probably go out there as a warrior and not care, even if he gets another hit in the face. But I got to say, against the Springboks being so physical, this is going to be interesting to see if he gets into any kind of contact and gets hurt. Maybe not, but he is such a creator in this game. You leave that guy with space and you have trouble. So it's going to be interesting to me how the Springboks, I'm saying All Blacks, how the Springboks will navigate around Anton Dupont without hurting him, while hitting his face, giving good tackles, but also marking him. Because what the All Blacks did really well is they neutralized Dupont. And when Dupont is neutralized, it makes it a lot harder for this French team. Then looking at the rest of the team, Jalibert obviously in there for Intermac. More of a running type player. Curious again, like I've said in my previous video. Is this guy going to play a territorial game? Are they going to play the deep kicks down the middle? What are they going to do in this game? I am curious to see how they play the Springboks. Jalibert obviously more of an upfront type, running type, fly off. Are they just going to go for a running type game? And then Dante was out, he's back in with a Fico. I mean, those two guys on center, guys, world class. They really, really are really good players. And they will match up to the Springboks. And that's why first half between the Springboks and the French is not going to be, it's going to be a very close game. I don't think it's going to be easy. These teams are going to go hammer and tongs. Then Damien Penaud, the highest scorer at the moment in the World Cup. But also just most line breaks. The guy is dangerous with ball in hand, and he's got such a good kicking boot that he can create any kind of magic out of nothing. So another guy to watch. Ramos at the back, solid fullback. He doesn't often make any mistakes. He's just one of those dependable type players. He reminds me back. I'm referring back to Springboks because I am a Springbok supporter. Back to Andre Hubert back in the days when he played for the Springboks. Just does nothing wrong. Solid with his kicking. I mean, his post kicking and just his poles from anywhere he can put them through. Such a talent. And then Louis Bill Barry, I don't know that much about, I've got to be honest. But yeah, he also starting. Then substitutes. Bogarit, I don't know. Wadi, Algereti, I don't know these players, all of them guys. Cross, I know, has been really good. I think he's the replacement hooker, if I'm not mistaken. And then you've got Makalu, who's been outstanding. He's also a very good guy to get off the bench. Taufi Finaui, Luku I've seen before, and Mufana has also been really good. Not the starting team, guys. Let's be honest. I mean, a guy like Mufana coming up at center from the bench, it's just not the same as a Dante and a Fico. And so you can go through a lot of those players on the substitute bench, and you just have to say that they don't quite match up to the starting 15. And that's the thing for me with the French, is they're going to have a good starting 15, but what they bring off the bench is not necessarily, for me, what the Springboks bring off the bench, just because of depth. But anyway, let's have a look at the Springbok side. So the Springboks starting with Kitsi Kitshoff, Mbonambi and Frans Malherbe. I thought they'll go that way. These guys, Malherbe has not had the best World Cup, but he's also not been the worst. He's still a really good scrummager. Mbonambi, always dependable, very good. Starting now that Marx is not around. Kitshoff, also very dependable guy. Come off the bench, start. I don't have worries there. I think it's a good front pack. Then Etzebeth and Franco Mostert. Franco Mostert, a guy that's kind of been, a lot of people have had questions around him. You gotta say, he's proven himself to be there. He deserved, well deserved, second World Cup, well deserved starting with Etzebeth. Etzebeth also, we've not seen him show that aggression and kind of be the enforcer on the field, you know. I know Bakkies Botha is the enforcer, but Etzebeth has played that role for a very long time in the World Cup. The last time we saw him like that was with Alatoa against Australia. That's the Etzebeth we want to see tomorrow on that field. But a good lock pairing there. Then Siya Kolisi and Pieter-Steph du Toit, say no more, both well deserved. Play out of their boots, both of those guys. Pieter-Steph has been outstanding in this World Cup again. Really carried his weight after his injury. Siya Kolisi, exactly the same thing. Both of them have had injuries, I think knee injuries, and both have been outstanding. Siya Kolisi's role that he plays as a captain, amazing. So really good there. Dwayne Vermeulen over Wiese. I like that. Many don't, might not do. Wiese is a good ball carrier, but Dwayne Vermeulen comes more of an overall game for me. He's very well experienced. He's definitely not the same Dwayne Vermeulen that he was when he was younger. But he comes with experience, he comes with some common sense, and he's that type of guy. He'll never do anything like tremendously long, but he's that type of guy that you know he's not going to put a foot wrong really on the field. But what he will do is he'll bring his experience and over the ball. He does something much better for me than Wiese does. He's a jackler. Wiese is not the best jackler. Vermeulen is very good at his jackling, and it's going to be important in this game to win those breakdowns, get those turnovers, and with the lack of a Malcolm Marx in this team, and you look at this overall front pack, kind of like a little bit of a lack in the jacklers. There's not as many jacklers as there used to be. Marx used to be a very good jackler. He's not there. You don't have the likes of a Kwagga Smith starting. So Dwayne Vermeulen's got to play that role of the jackling, you know, kind of get to those breakdowns and get over those balls. Then, this is where it gets interesting, guys. Wow. I was quite shocked when I saw this team today. Now, I've discussed with my podcast, with my mate, and many of us have discussed this. Never ever did I think on 9 that we'll see Kobus Reinach being picked to start without Faf de Klerk starting. I thought Faf de Klerk will always start. They picked Kobus Reinach, and I mean, this guy's had a good World Cup, and it's good that they're starting to put him into the spotlight a bit. It's well deserved. This guy's worked hard. He's been sitting on the bench for a Faf very long. Starting him, I love that. It took me some time to process. Don't get me wrong. It took me some time to process. But from the start, I felt that they'll play Manie Libbok. Just if I was a coach, I'd probably go Pollard. But I knew the way Rassie thinks and Ninabe thinks, and I felt that they would go Manie Libbok. They did go that way. They'll want to rather have the experience to close down the game at the end. So it's going to be really interesting, because that tells me the Springboks are coming to play more of a front foot type, running type game at the start, and then second half maybe try and just tighten it up a bit with the likes of a Pollard and a Faf coming on. But it's going to be exciting to see this, because obviously they're trying to keep the pairings the same. So they say, okay, Faf, you stay with Pollard, come up second half, you're going to, play out your legs in a half. And the same they say to Kobus and Reinach and Manie Libbok. So in the key positions, what this coaching staff is doing is saying, you have a half an hour, empty your gas tank, empty it. So it just creates a different dynamic, guys. And I like the way that the coaches think. It's just like what I really like is when I start seeing the team and I'm like, okay, this is the way Rassie and Jock thought about it. So I really think they've been really clever in this World Cup. And again, I don't think it's a bad call for going for Kobus Reinach and Manie Libbok. They've been training together, kind of, I'm sure, on the field in the training sessions. Those two train together, and then a Faf is training with Pollard. So they create those combinations. So those two guys will start. Dele Lindy, proven that he's the best inside centre. Estrazen has not been better than him. That's just a fact. And then the other very interesting call, putting Jesse Kriel as a starting 13. They are a lot about fairness in this team, and that's just the way they operate. But that's what they do. So that is why they went for Jesse Kriel and not And I thought maybe they'll play because that's what they alluded to in some of the press conferences. But going for Kriel, and I'm not surprised, because that's usually what they do. They don't bring injured players straight back into the starting 50. And then looking at the back three, I thought it might be Kurtley Arendse instead of Moody. Because again, that's the way the Springboks are. They are very kind of like fair type way that they coach, in the sense that if you perform, we will pick you. They don't care about all the other things. So even though Kanan Moody decided he wanted to move to centre, that meant that's what he got specialised in. So they probably told him that you can't just step back into wing. So that gave Kurtley Arendse the first option in this game. And I'm not necessarily got an issue with that, because Kurtley Arendse can create magic out of nothing. It is interesting they're going for two light wings in a Colby and an Arendse, but they are playing the French. It's probably the best place to try and look at two kind of like flare, fast type wings. We know how well Colby knows the French. And then Damian Willemse fullback, again, loving that. Nothing wrong with that. And interesting what they're going to do. I've already discussed the bench, but they've got Pollard there and Faf de Klerk and Willie Leroux. So your key positions, your scrum half, your fly half, and your fullback, they will replace just after halftime and give two basically key sets of players in key positions a half to empty out their tank. And that's a quarter-final. You give it all and you go off. And that's what they're going to do with both of these kind of combinations. And I don't necessarily, when I look at it, when I spend some time, processing this, I'm like, this is not a bad thing, Then looking at the rest there, Dion Fourie, guys, nothing wrong there. He's been used as a hooker. He's played like, kind of loose forward. They're putting him up second half. The only thing that you can worry on is like when he comes up and they kind of read he's throwing, because he'll probably try and throw it safe and try and throw it in the front. So he doesn't have that much experience throwing at the back. And he has played at hooker position for the Stormers, but not that much for the Springboks. But the thing again is that brings another jackler on the field. He's a smaller guy, but he's a jackler. He's so good at the breakdown. So again, I have no issues with that. Oxenchair has been outstanding in his World Cup. He would have probably been, in my opinion, the starting prop. But again, like, why not get him on second half for the full game? And then he'll have his impact. And Vincent Koch been lukewarm at this World Cup. Up and down, not been outstanding. but maybe this is his time to shine. Vincent Koch also there. Then interesting, going for RG Snyman, but not John Klein. So John Klein and Moody not making this team. But a John Klein not there. You've got a Kane and Moody not there. And then the big one, is not in the team, guys. So that's the thing that I said. Is like, I felt that I did look at different options, and I was like, maybe they don't play and I didn't predict this at all. So don't get me wrong. I'm not Mr. Clever Ass or whatever. But that's the thing with the Springboks. You never know where they're going to come from with this coaching staff. And then at the end deciding we're not playing it's going to be too difficult for our selection options. But still, interestingly enough, going for a 5-3 split, going for Pollard, Faf de Klerk and Willie Leroux. Deciding in the 3 main positions, they will play 2 kind of like sets of players, first and second half. Then looking at the rest there, guys, you look at RG Snyman, outstanding player to get it to come off the bench, and Kwagga Smith. I mean, I'm so glad that they acknowledge how good this guy is, and I think Springbok Rugby has come a long way in the coaching, because for a very long time Jock Ninoba didn't really kind of use him for me as well he should have. And I've heard many All Black supporters say in my comment section, that's one player that they love. Like, I think if we could put on an All Black jersey, they would love him, because he's just that kind of like, he's got a lot of me for me like a Richie McCaw grunt. Gets over the ball, hard worker, one of the quickest on the breakdowns, one of the hardest workers on the field. And I'm glad to see him on that bench. So guys, the Springboks going for a 5-3 split. I mean, I was blown away. If I look at this game against France, boy, I've got to look at what the coaching staff looked at doing here, and I can see where they're coming from. They want to play basically two teams, 2 halves, get that variety, and they want to give everyone a chance to empty out their tanks and give everything, and that brings a lot of impact. But it's not going to be that bomb squad impact that everyone thought. It's not what it's going to be. They're probably going to bring these players on the second half at certain points in the game, probably around the 60-minute mark, all the players from the bench, and you've got some really, really good players coming from that bench. Let's be realistic. Let's look at it. Okay, it is a French home quarterfinal. You got to look at the ref. He might be lenient to the French in these calls. It's probably going to be close first half. But when you look at the depth of the Springboks, they should be able to win this game, guys. I really feel this should be a win for them with the kind of team that's coming off of the bench. And when you look at the team that's coming off of the bench for the French. But the big question to me is, and I sound like the old Springbok that say this all the time, how will the ref call it? Because there's going to be some manipulation in the game with the refs. They can swing those 50-50s, you know. One of the biggest things I see quite often is where a player just is on the wrong side of the field. He took a tackle. He's just a little bit in the way, but the scrum off can get it. And sometimes the refs are like this to call it for the one team, but then the other team, they just let it flow. Simple things like that, guys. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but the fact is, when you look on paper between these two teams, the Springboks are really the better team. But then you bring the factor and you go into that game and you say, even from a French point of view, you have one injured player playing, which is the Pond. He's still injured. Let's be honest. That guy is still injured. So when you look at all of that, you got to start saying, like, if you get real about it, it is the better team. But on the game, the gameplay, the bounce of the ball, and the referee is what it's all about. Guys, this is why we love rugby. 2 of these teams are going out. 2 of the 4 heavyweights of world rugby are going out this weekend. Just listen. Just listen to what I'm saying. Cheers, guys. I will chat to you again after the first 2 quarterfinals. I'll give my reactions. Please, man, if you enjoy what I say and you just enjoy my channel, hit that subscribe button. Let me come up on your homepage and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks. Bye. Cheers.